We strike with the wrath of the righteous!
I'm Mr. Watchtower, and you're listening to the voice of Watchtower and Awakening, this Watchtower and Awakening podcast. Lapsed Jehovah's Witness. And the laugh in the background that you can hear is Bonaventure, lapsed Catholic. Am I right?
Yes.
We decided you're more lapsed than Norris. Norris, who is not with us because he decided to spend a weekend in London and missed recording. Hi, Norris, if you're listening.
We miss you, Norris.
He's not listening.
Oh.
He's enjoying himself in
Good
London.
For him.
We've made it to the ninth episode. Ninth episode, brilliant. This episode is what's this episode about? What did we discuss?
We've discussed a lot today. It's been a busy old day, let me tell you. I feel like we've really put the world to rights.
Yeah, we should have had the mic on then when we were articulate and making sense.
Yes, that would have been better than this, I would suspect.
One of the things that we were talking about was Catholic doctrine, as you should be well versed in. Am I right?
I've no idea what you're talking about.
You're a lapsed Catholic, so you moved away from the doctrine, but you should have a little bit of an idea of what the Catholic doctrine is, ish.
I think I do.
We didn't do a Halloween episode.
We didn't.
But sometimes
we should have.
I like to listen to the Halloween episode by The Thinking Atheist with Seth Andrews because he does like a collection of ghost stories and stuff and gets people to sort of write in with different ghost stories and he reads them through. I'm going to use my own experience, a real life ghost story.
Wow.
Bear in mind this is true, but there's obviously there's a.
Don't ruin it.
Okay, right.
Don't ruin it.
All right, okay. So
I'm excited.
So I'm 19 years old.
You don't look it. You look a lot younger.
I was 19 years old.
Good.
A little while ago.
Yeah. Not long, surely.
I was at university, and at university, whilst not really doing my degree, I used to work behind a bar.
You did?
At the end of the shift,
Were you like Tom Cruise in Cocktail?
Better than Tom Cruise in
Lots of
Cocktail.
bread.
Yeah, still got all the moves and better poetry. I'm 19 years old. I think I'm 19, maybe 20 at the most. Okay. And I used to work behind a bar.
Right.
Behind this bar, I used to sort of finish at about maybe 11:30 or 12:30, depending on the clean-up process and stuff. So I used to have to walk through a city over a bridge. Mm-hmm. I cut a little bit through a park and then jumped over a fence and went through a graveyard.
Right.
True story, by the way.
Okay. You've said that twice.
I don't believe in the supernatural, so walking through a graveyard isn't a big deal to me, even at 12:30. So I was on my way back home. I'd done this many times. It was a bit of a cold night, so it was misty. It was a little bit eerie. And if I believed in the supernatural, this would have been a good time for something to appear, as if by magic.
Yeah.
So I started walking through the graveyard. And as I approached the church, I'm walking through tombstones and stuff. And I see a young girl dressed in white with like the wind sort of flowing, making a sort of a skirt wave from side to side. And she was making like kind of slow hand gestures as if she was kind of like looking or maybe reading like the words on the tombstones or something. Uh-huh. And,
is this real?
This is real, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
I've got a conclusion, but as I was walking towards this figure, she was much brighter than her surroundings. She's got this white dress on, but it was like she was actually illuminated. So my heart was a little bit in my mouth because I just thought, at this time I wasn't like I'm pretty sure I was an atheist, but I wasn't too sort of active or anything. Yeah. I wasn't really denouncing the supernatural. I was just sort of not very interested in it. So as I approached, I got a little bit scared. I wasn't really sure. Like if I'd have gone the other way, I would have had to go back through the dark park. So I thought this way is going to be quicker. I can at least get to civilization. As I got closer and I started to think, wow, I'm looking at a ghost. What I noticed was 2 students led in the grass next to the tombstones, and they were upward lighting one of their friends who was like acting for the purposes of a media project. So they were upward lighting a girl who was dressed in white, who was deliberately being sort of spooky and ghost-like, just in this perfect sort of situation, which is obviously why they picked it as like a set location.
Of course, yeah.
So like I felt a bit better about noticing this.
Just run off.
And my heart just went, so it went back again. And so like I walked through and got to civilization, and I was fairly exhilarated. My hair was like standing on end.
Yeah.
But there was a real reason for it. All I can think was if I was somebody who believed in the supernatural and was so scared that once I saw this I ran, mm-hmm. my conclusion to this would be I know what I saw and you can't tell me otherwise, so therefore ghosts exist. And if you told me that they didn't, I'd be very upset by that.
If you hadn't seen the people lighting it, yeah.
Yeah? So there's my spooky Halloween story.
It's not very scary, that.
It's not, but if I'd have stopped before I noticed...
Or if, like we were saying about, you know, like the scared thing and stuff like that, I'd have just run off. As soon as I'd have seen that, I might have stopped and then I'd have just, like, legged it the other way. I wouldn't have headed towards it. So to me, if I was retelling that story, it would be, and there was this figure and it was late and so I legged it. And that would be the end, that I had this ghostly...
Yeah.
Sighting, but because you're manlier than me, only a smidge.
Just, yeah.
Because you're manlier than me, you sort of headed towards the light.
Look out for the light. I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
And see two boys rolling around in the grass with the torches. Explains it.
Well, yeah, there is some explanation. That's the thing. Like your conclusion would have been, I am now a believer.
Absolutely.
So there, I know what I saw.
Yeah.
And that could have fueled me for forever, couldn't it? I could have been a ghost hunter by now. But as it goes, there was a real life explanation, and as ever, reality won out.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on from Halloween.
Beautiful. Well, nice segue.
There's no segue.
Oh, not great segue. You could have done with a better segue.
Okay. Speaking of things that scare me to fucking death.
Yes.
Let's move to the Catholic Church.
Nice segue.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Speaking of things that keep many children up at night, terrified.
Catholic priests. Oh, church.
And priests and Pope.
Yes.
So what I wanted to discuss was the Catholic Church has been in the news recently, partly because of the Synod of the Family.
Yes.
The Synod of the Family to discuss what sort of constitutes as a family, or whether or not divorcees can get more involved in the church, whether or not gay people have souls, I guess. Deserve
the right to live.
Do they have anything to bring to the table as far as the church is concerned?
I don't. I know I don't.
You don't?
No.
You're also not gay, so...
I'm not.
No. So
what does that make me?
It just makes you a lapsed Catholic, like I said.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm shifting over, as we speak, to the BBC website.
Yes.
And I'm just going to play for you a little minute or two. Yeah, 2.5 minutes. I'm just going to play this for you. And then we are going to discuss. Okay?
Yep.
Listen up.
Ready.
Pope Francis entered this synod with 1 billion parishioners and a promise to examine how the Catholic Church treats its faithful. Should it be more welcoming to gay people and divorced people? This synod of cardinals and bishops was a first practical test of Francis's ability to change the Church. For now, the Pope and his supporters did not get their way. The draft called for a discussion of communion for divorced and remarried Catholics. This section was rejected. The draft also suggested that men and women with homosexual tendencies must be welcomed with respect and care. This too was turned down.
Ci sono stati anche altri momenti di desolazione.
There have been moments of desolation and tension, said the Pope. He spoke of the temptation of what he called hostile rigidity, a refusal to learn and reach out. This will disappoint Andrea and Dario, a gay couple from Rome. They want to raise their 3 kids, Artemisia, and twins Jacopo and Chloe, as Catholics.
I want to feel part of the church. I want to stay within the church, and I want to. My place is here, but I have to admit that sometimes it's very difficult because a family like our family is not. How do you say that? There is nothing for a family like ours.
Conservative Catholics look at this Pope with unease. They believe that Catholic doctrine was set 2,000 years ago and must not change. The Pope asked them to speak out, and they have now done so.
The Pope said if there hadn't been, again, he said if there hadn't been this discussion, I would have been very upset. So I think the Pope is quite happy to create a conversation, which now is going to have to continue at the local level for the next several months until the next gathering of the Synod in October 2015.
The Pope may be the absolute ruler of the Vatican and the Catholic Church, but this synod shows that he faces serious internal opposition. Conservative cardinals have drawn their battle lines, and they refuse to be moved. James Reynolds, BBC News, Rome.
So, there's a lot to unpack there. Any immediate thoughts?
Feel a little bit sick,
Yeah.
if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
It makes me cringe.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. What specifically made you
All of
cringe?
it.
All of it,
Every
right.
last bit.
Right, I've got a couple of problems. One of the things is that
You've got more
they,
than a couple.
they weren't the things that were rejected. One of the things was people with homosexual tendencies can still sort of take part in the church or have things to bring to the church.
Yeah.
And this is the Catholic sort of church is always really sort of very particular with its words, so that it can kind of
it says a lot, but it doesn't commit to anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It
It kind of says things in no uncertain terms, and yet if you reverse it back to them, they can say, well, it's not really in certain terms. It's so they mentioned they mentioned homosexual tendencies, which leaves them able to say if you are practicing homosexual in a sexual relationship, you can't be any part of us. It's only if you've got tendencies. So we'll accept if you are we'll accept if you're gay, but you are not following up on your gay tendencies or your sexual sort of life or whatever. So that's a bit weird in itself, because they even rejected that. And if they'd have said yes, okay, they could have still backpedaled on the whole. They could have still backpedaled and said, well, if you're gay and you want to be gay and you're in a gay relationship, that's bad. But if you have homosexual tendencies, we can kind of work with you as long as you're willing to be celibate. Yeah.
Yeah.
That bothers me.
The doctrine set 2,000 years ago must not change. That bothers me. But yet they have a pope that tweets. I love the fact that whilst we were listening to that, we both had our heads in our hands, like general.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, me and Norris and I have had a bit of a discussion where like Catholic Church has kind of come into it in the peripheries of a discussion, and I've always said, we'll have to leave that to one side because we could do a whole podcast based on the hypocritical nature and bloodthirsty sort of church and stuff. This is weird because I kind of wanted to devote a podcast to the Catholic Church, but it's so horrendously misled and it's so ridiculously criminal that I can't do it in a podcast. No. I could do
one section.
Yeah, I could do a podcast a month for the next 3 or 4 years, and I'd probably just be getting to the end of child abuse, let alone anything else. Yeah. But just because this is in the news, I thought we'd just briefly discuss. But the thing about the doctrine, conservatives saying the doctrine was set 2,000 years ago and it should not be changed, even though it's always been changed. Yeah. Like what are they thinking? 2,000 years ago, life
is the same. Life is the same as 2,000 years ago. We do not move on. Stay in the past.
Just before we came onto the microphone, we're mentioning that it's been in living memory that the church has backpedaled about evolution. We'll get to that as a second part, but the whole premise of Catholicism and redemption is based on you giving yourself to the church and believing in Jesus, and then your sins are forgiven because we are all infected with our original sin. Yeah. Now, it's been pointed out by atheists many times, myself included, that if there is no original sin, there's not really much point for the Catholic Church. And there cannot be any original sin if there was not Adam and Eve to create original sin. So if the church is happy with evolution, there could not have been an Adam and an Eve.
Which we know.
Evolution
tells us that didn't happen.
Yeah. So, no point with the Catholic Church. I've already washed my hands of it at that point.
Which they know. They know that. They absolutely know that.
They know, yeah. 90% of the people that follow them could not give a toss about that.
No, I agree.
they're happy with original sin being a reality, but they're also happy for Adam and Eve to have never existed.
Yeah.
That to me causes a slight conflict of interest.
But
Mutual exclusive, some might say.
Maybe to you it does, but yeah, maybe to you it does, but to these people, it's all they have. So the technicalities that we would call just facts, they will just oversee that. They'll overlook that completely. Just
if anybody's listening and you are a Catholic or used to be a Catholic and you've at least reconciled this at some point in your life, or maybe you didn't reconcile it but you just sort of ignored it, would you please just maybe tweet me or send me something? Because I really want to know how people reconcile the redemption of original sin with the fact that there was never an original sin. How does that work? Okay,
so I think we talk about this a lot, and I think your problem is you know too much.
That reminds me of the it just reminds me of Little Britain when the guy says, have you heard of the fruit that is often mistaken as a vegetable? And the guy says, you mean a tomato? And then he dips his finger and then he dips his finger in his soup and sucks his finger and goes, you know too much. That's what that reminded me of.
Okay, good.
Carry on.
So
you know too much.
Sinister, I like it. Okay, you know too much.
Thanks. Okay? I'll take that as a compliment.
Don't. You know too much. You question things. Catholics don't. They don't know anything. They don't question anything. We've said this so many times. They are blindly led. They go to church, they listen to what some old guy says, and then they go home. And they don't think about it again.
Can I just introduce a caveat?
Go.
I feel like I need to point this out for listeners, even though, you know, anybody that had any modicum of intellect would understand this already. But when you're saying they, you just mean the majority of Catholics that
Absolutely.
We talk about, because we're not saying that Catholics themselves are stupid.
No, not at all.
We are saying that Catholics in their droves do not question many of the doctrines.
No. And they don't question just... I remember, I've said this to you before, listening to a Seth Andrews blog, and he was interviewing this woman who did a lot of stuff for the church, and her job was church-related with her husband. And then one day she was talking about reading a book to her son, a religious sort of whatever, and it was about the snake talking. And in her head, at that time, she went, a snake that talks? And that was it. That was that moment of that. And people don't have that. They don't question. They just carry on. They just keep going. And then we were saying about the questioning, and that's where the problem comes. That's why education to religion is a massive deal.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you.
Thanks. It's good to have you here.
I'd like to spiral out of control, but kind of the Catholic doctrine kind of does that, because there's so many things. We were trying to discuss it before, weren't we? Yeah. And at times you were just like, how come? Why don't they? Isn't there
too much?
Isn't there just a way that you can?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so much going on that it's difficult to even pinpoint how ridiculous and hypocritical the whole thing is. So you can just pick anything out of the air. So it's easy to spiral out of control. But just for the sake of this Pope policy, it struck me as, I want to say strange, but that's not the word. I found it very interesting and kind of made my blood boil that we've got a gay couple raising children in Rome, and they're saying we want to be part of the church, and that kind of goes back to the previous episode of us on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, that goes back to that. We had hate preachers telling people that they were faggots, they were rug munchers, they're going to go to hell, all this kind of stuff. And there was many of those not faggots and rug munchers, thanks, let's just call them people on the sexual spectrum.
Yeah.
Those people were going back to the hate Baptist preachers, and they were saying to them, I'm a Christian, I know my Bible, God is forgiving,
God
blah blah blah. And we were just like, wow, how can you still hold to the same book and be homosexual and understand that in that book it does say that you should be stoned to death? I'm not saying that's right, I'm saying that is in your Bible. How do you reconcile that? So if you are gay and used to be religious, or are are religious. Again, that's something I'd like to know. How did you reconcile that at the time? Please tweet me at apostateawake or get in touch with me via watchtowerandawakening.com.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, I think, and a big thing is the understanding. We know that religion for people it fills a hole, it fills that gap, it makes you feel part of something. We've said that all along. But how, when an organisation is basically saying that everything, your life choices are absolutely wrong and so we just can't have you on board, how do you stay on board?
We also spoke about
how do you go, yes, but I believe in God and I believe in the good of the church despite what you're saying, and so I stay.
But also we were talking earlier as well about I can't remember which pope it was, whether it were Papa Ratzinger or John Paul II. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them is infamous for using the line intrinsically disordered. That's what gay people were.
It was Ratzinger.
I'm sure it must have been Ratzinger because he was much more conservative, wasn't he? But intrinsically disordered. Because I also remember Stephen Fry. Check out the Intelligence Squared debate with Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens versus her with the horrendous voice.
Anne Widdecombe. And the Kenyan priest, is it?
Archbishop, whatever his name is, can't remember. But yeah, in that Intelligence Squared debate, Stephen Fry mentions that intrinsically disordered is like, you know, who are you to tell me that I'm intrinsically disordered? And then he goes on to say, which has become like a bit of a famous thing because you never see Stephen Fry lose his temper, but he says it's okay for Catholics to sit there and say, well, that was just the feeling and that was the zeitgeist of the time. We can't be blamed for the way that people acted at that time. And he says, then what are you for? What is the Catholic Church for if it can't lead by moral example when it claims to be on the moral high ground at all times?
We're saying this though, with regards to, like we were talking, weren't we? And I know this is going to go off at a tangent, but we were talking about, the history and our grandparents and the way they were with religion, and then how it's come down generations and towards where religion is. To us, it's important, but not in the way it was important to our grandparents. It's a big part of our lives because of what we see going on around us and around the world and what we've witnessed and stuff like that. It's that. It has to move with the times. Religion has to move with the times. It has to move with its audience, like everything else.
Yes. And
that meeting of the Pope and his posse, the Pope posse.
Pope and his posse. That sounds like a great detective drama.
Yeah.
Pope and his posse.
And they're just saying, this worked 2,000 years ago. We stick to it. That is mental. That is outrageously narrow-minded. It's crazy. But yet this guy tweets and he's part of and he's this and he's that and he doesn't want his Pope-mobile and he wants to be at the forefront of but yet we don't change what happened 2,000 years ago. We stick to it. I mean, come on, people.
Let me explain to you what I view. I've always said I view the Catholic Church as the most ancient criminal organisation there's ever been.
Yes, you do.
And I've also said that not only does it incorporate the majority of the mafia, it operates better than them.
Yeah.
If you don't know what I'm getting at, just
Google it.
just Google it and check out the criminal organisation for what it is. I'll happily go into conversation about anybody that thinks that they're not. But this is the way I see it. I see the Catholic Church as essentially a corporation, not Catholics. Just like good people can work for bad businessmen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Catholic Church, as its doctrines dictate, and the way that its hierarchy move in mysterious ways, just like their imaginary God. These are essentially. They're essentially business models. This is the evolution of the doctrine. If the majority of the people that are giving you your power change their mind, you will change your mind in order to stay alive, which is what you just said previously.
Yeah.
So when we had Papa Ratzinger, he was very conservative.
He was.
He was very intelligent. He's written books and stuff. He's a good historian. Well, good historian is debatable, but he was a historian. A lot of knowledge, and he was picked. But the problem with him was. He was in charge of the Congressional Doctrine of the Faith when the child abuse scandal went through.
Absolutely,
he is, people were calling for like a citizen's arrest on him when he came to countries.
Yeah. Which is pretty much probably the reason why he was forced to step down.
Exactly, yeah. So what we had was John Paul II, and loads of people love John Paul II.
They did.
I won't agree with any pope because I don't agree with any religion. So they're equally ridiculous to me, but not necessarily equally culpable.
Yeah.
So Pope John Paul II, he was like a bit of a happy-go-lucky sort of wink and a nod, holding babies and all that kind of stuff, and people loved him for it.
They did.
Papa Ratzinger, very conservative, he kind of rocked the boat because not only was he sort of in charge of the paedophile child rape scandal, and I hate...
Was he in charge of the covering up of the paedophile?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But
he was in charge of protecting his...
Yeah, he was in charge of protecting the paedophiles.
That's right, yeah.
Also... I kind of hate how whenever you read about it, sometimes you'll hear the Catholic sex scandal. It's not a sex scandal. It's child rape and abuse.
Yeah.
It's the emotional and physical torture of minors. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to set that straight because it pisses me off when I see that in like news headlines. The sex scandal. Yeah. It's not a sex scandal, is it? An affair is a sex scandal.
Yeah.
Because he was not responsible for it, but responsible for the cover-up and responsible for the silencing of people. And one of the most obvious routes is that when he was sending things out to bishops who have to go by whatever he says, he encouraged them not to go directly to the authorities. Mm-hmm. And many Catholics will say, well, in any institution, there's statistically some paedophiles. Some people get raped by somebody that's like in charge of them, like a teacher or something. Mm-hmm. That happens, but not many head teachers will then say, okay, so what school can we send this teacher to?
Yes.
Can the teacher maybe stay at my house while things become while things start laying low?
Yeah.
Perhaps we could do something like give them some money so they could disappear to somewhere where they had diplomatic immunity and nobody could do anything about it.
Yeah.
Or can we do something with them and try and divert the authorities up until the point where the statute of limitations runs out, and then we can give them the middle finger smiling. So Jeffrey Roberts QC wrote the book The Case of the Pope. I recommend that in its entirety. It's a really good book.
It's horrifying, but yeah.
It's horrifying, but it's laid out exactly like you imagine.
It's informative, it's relevant, it's got all the detail that you need to make an informed decision on what.
Yeah, and because he's a QC, he deliberately goes down the legal route. He kind of lays out the evidence and he says, if the Pope was in court, this is the destructive evidence I have at my disposal to which he could never come back from. It's just that because he's Pope, he doesn't get trialed. Yeah. Anyway, so conservative Pope, Ratzinger.
Yes.
Was in the Nazi youth. Not that that's indicative of somebody who wants to be a Nazi because he was a kid. Okay, fair enough. But it's just a hilarious little sideliner, isn't it? It's a little footnote that people keep picking up on.
Yeah.
So he's a massive problem for the Catholic Church. People cannot let this lie, and he draws so much negative attention to the Church that they need to do something about it. Mm-hmm. So just like any business would do. Just like any corporation, they figure out how to sway public opinion. Mm-hmm. And if enough people in the church decide that they want something to change, that church and this church does, and will change. Mm-hmm. Now, the Catholic Church, because it's a massive organisation, it's, what did we say, 1.3 billion people. Yeah. This is a really, really big ship, and big ships don't turn quickly. No. Which is why they begin the discussion.
They do. They begin it.
They begin the discussion. Yeah. They have the discussion.
They do.
Like some hierarchies that we are familiar with, the discussion continues, but nothing really happens despite the followers wanting it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then there'll be more discussion.
Yeah.
That discussion will lead to discussions between their followers.
Yeah.
Then the various places, the various countries, they'll get some feedback from all the bishops that are in charge of certain areas, and they'll decide whether or not their position on homosexuality has become untenable. Yeah. If it has, their doctrine will change. Fact.
It can't change because they've had it for 2,000 years. I don't think we've been through... Have we not been through that?
Yeah. Exactly. That's my point. So everything changes.
I don't think you're getting this.
When they used to be geocentrists, and they believed that the Earth was the center and the sun went around it. Mm-hmm. That was their view.
Yep.
And that's that.
That's the end of that.
And then later, that wasn't their view.
But that must have been before 2000.
Was that before 2000?
I don't think you're getting this. Come on now. I don't think you're getting this.
It's just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing.
It's pretty. It's so against everything in the modern world. That's what I find pretty astonishing. Everything that we as relatively young individuals know about the world and society and changing and rolling with the punches and all of that, this religion just doesn't. It blows my mind every time we have a conversation. I feel like I've been punched and I have to go, like shake it off to try and unfuggle my brain. I don't
unfuggle your brain. That's a really good word. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you say something or we watch something and then we both go, oh.
Yes.
It's dumbfounding.
Case in point, while the subject of child rape is looming, find and watch the documentary that's entitled "Deliver Us from Evil."
Oh, I can't talk about that. I haven't slept since we watched that.
Watch "Deliver Us from Evil," and attempt to reconcile your Catholicism.
Yeah. Do you know what? I would love to sit down with some real religious, into the church, real Catholic people. I would love to sit down with that because we watched that with one eye shut, with our hands
massively
over our
uncomfortable, isn't it?
over our open out. It continues to shock me, and we still talk about it now, don't we? It made me squirm from the second it started. It was, oh gosh.
Yeah,
it was shocking.
It needs to be experienced.
And the worst thing is, that's one example.
Yes.
One priest, one example.
One example, of which in the case of the Pope book, there are many, many examples.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was one example in one small town in America, a small, tiny area. And we're talking worldwide, happening right now.
Mm.
I mean,
and without, I mean, I'm going to give away the plot because it's basic. It's very obvious what the plot is. The one priest was bounced from small town to small town with full cooperation and knowledge of all of the hierarchy, including things being sent to the Vatican.
Yes.
And once this predator had bounced from place to place, being in charge of many people. And obviously was near children the whole time and abusing children the whole time, whilst living at some of the congregation's houses and abusing those kids. He then basically disappeared and now lives out his life in Ireland with a full pension paid by the Vatican. That if that guy doesn't. If I don't agree with the death penalty, but if I did agree with the death penalty, he's the first one in the queue.
For me, I know this isn't what this podcast is about, so I apologise for talking about it, but for me, his smugness and his smirking and allowing them to film him in front of a children's playground whilst he sniggered away to himself pretty much about what he got away with was sickening. You were with me. It was sickening. But the heartbreak of the children and the families who let him into their life was devastating to watch. We weren't involved in it. It wasn't even in our country, and it was devastating. We were rocked by that. Both of us sort of sat there just going, wow. It was horrifying.
It's almost as if God didn't have a hand in giving him the authority that was bestowed upon him.
Yeah, right. It is.
Horrific.
Anyway, sorry to digress.
Shall we try and lighten the mood?
Really?
No, we've already spoke about we've briefly spoke about evolution and how the Catholic Church changed its mind. You had a thing, didn't you, that you were going to read?
I can read
Let's
for you.
Let's have a little check out. Let's check that out. Are you ready?
Once upon a time,
there was Jehovah.
far. All right, are you ready? Okay.
And there was darkness, and he separated the darkness and called the light light and the darkness darkness.
Okay, are you ready? That wasn't really the start.
That's not the start.
So this is taken from a newspaper. It reads, when we read in Genesis the account of creation, we risk imagining that God was a magician with such a magic wand as to be able to do everything. However, it was not like that, and thus creation went forward for centuries and centuries, millennia and millennia, until it became what we know today. In fact, because God is not a demiurge or a magician, but the creator who gives being to all entities. The Big Bang that is placed today at the origin of the world does not contradict the divine intervention, but exacts it. The evolution in nature is not opposed to the notion of creation, because evolution presupposes the creation of beings that evolve. How do you feel about that? Oh, shall I pass you the sick bucket?
There was a strange word in there that I hadn't come across before you found it, and the word was demiurge.
Demiurge, yeah.
Which to me sounds like half a sexual inclination.
I had half a sexual inclination when I was reading it. That's strange.
Okay, so yeah, I checked it out in the dictionary, and it reads, demiurge, a platonic deity who orders or fashions the material world out of chaos. Okay. So when people who don't really believe in evolution say things like, oh well, evolution goes against the second law of thermodynamics, which means that everything results in chaos. Everything turns to chaos. Nothing can sort of go against that. Therefore, evolution doesn't exist. They don't understand what the second law of thermodynamics is when they say that, because thermodynamics is about things that are within a closed system. The Earth is not a closed system because it has sunlight. Blah blah blah. Right. Anyway, but the point is that they're taking the view that evolution happened. They're happy to concede that.
Yeah. And
I don't really know why it's really made the news, to be honest, because they conceded this a long time ago. There was a public letter of apology written to Darwin.
Yeah.
Basically saying, sorry, we were wrong, you were right, but we're still infallible. Nah. But what they're saying is now they're saying that they are intelligent design proponents, which majority of Catholics actually aren't. But grassroots Catholics that we've spoke to, the majority of them will just say, yeah, I think evolution is the right way forward, and nothing else. But what Catholics are saying, their official dogma, it seems, is that they are intelligent design proponents, which basically means I believe that everything evolved, but God did it, because that's what the Pope's saying. He's saying,
it happened. Evolution happened.
Yeah.
But God made it happen.
Exactly. So what was that?
One step ahead of the game.
He basically decided that God is a deity who orders or fashions the material world out of chaos.
Yeah. I genuinely imagine that they sort of sat around one day and they're all sort of going, okay, so it seems this evolution lark is pretty proven. So how are we going to spin it? What do we say to make all our 1.3 million followers? What do we say to keep them on board? We need them on board. So what do we say? And they sit down. They may have like a little chart in the background, and they write God, evolution, and then they try and draw it together. And you can imagine these crazy old guys just sat there plotting to keep these people on board. That's the way it feels. And then someone just goes, oh, I've totally got it. Oh my God, like they've had one too many wines at the altar.
Yeah.
And this guy's just like, we just say that God sparked it. He was the one.
Yeah.
One day he clicked his fingers and he went, evolution, go. And it did.
So the bishops and stuff is sat around the table.
Yeah, the cardinals and all that.
And they've been having a good chat, and then one of them stands up.
Probably
and
a few drinks.
One of them stands up and goes, "God of the gaps, guys. Am I right? Am I right?" And they all go, "Am I right?" And then there's high fives everywhere. Everyone takes off their weird little pointy hats, throws them up in the air like a graduation photograph.
Yes.
Because then they've got it. God of the
gaps.
gaps.
Then they go rape a little boy, right?
So
no.
More than likely, yeah, or statistically likely, yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is they go for the God of the gaps argument, where they say, okay, so evolution has now become so overwhelmingly evident
we can't keep fighting it.
We can't keep fighting
Yeah.
it. So what we're going to do is we're going to accept it.
Yeah.
We're going to see it as like a new revelation.
Yeah.
And then we're going to decide we still need God.
Yeah.
So we're going to put God somewhere where science can't really sort of talk about him.
Yeah.
So
science right now can't prove that initial spark.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can concrete say it was that.
Yeah.
So the Catholic Church go,
therefore God.
God, yeah. And that's amazing, though.
And when they do know and they can recreate it in a lab, they would say, yeah, but you needed reality in order to create anything, and God exists outside of reality, therefore God, because you're never going to quite get rid of it. I know. I say you know I said that I see this as like a corporation.
Yes.
To me, this God of the gaps thing, the way that they regress as science encroaches, to me it's just politics.
Yeah.
And I mean politics in its crudest form.
Yeah.
I'm talking about with subjective evolution or homosexuality or whatever. They put the fingers in their ears and they go la 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 until everyone turns around and says, okay, it's getting ridiculous now. We're back against the wall. We've got to do something about this. We need to change this up. This is exactly this. All I see here is I did not have sexual relations with that woman, and because Bill Clinton would have spoken to his spin doctors, and they would have been like deny, and he's like, I did not have sexual, and then the dress turns up.
Yeah.
And it's like, Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky's got this dress, and it's got trace amounts of your semen all over it. Why is that? And he just says, well, I was having sexual relations with that one. So then they say,
I didn't
right.
have actual sex with her. I just enjoyed cigars with her.
So then what happens is the spin doctors just say, we can spin all day, but this is concrete evidence that we can't deny. Yeah. So we can no longer spin. We have to stop this spin in motion now. We come out with the truth because it's the only way that we can really backpedal and save your career. And that's exactly what the Catholic Church has done. The Catholic Church has stood there and said, right, now it's become a little bit too obvious that evolution is the only way to explain how life came up. Well, not how life came about, sorry. Evolution is the only way to explain how life diversifies.
Yeah. But with them accepting evolution, they are absolutely saying that Adam and Eve is not possible. The Adam and Eve story is not possible. That's not how it started. But, and we talk about this all the time, Catholics will not put two and two together because they do not read and they do not explore. They just accept what they are told. I mean, we talk about this all the time. My big problem is that people don't read and they don't, like, if I think of something, I'll research it because I need to know whether the answer is what I thought or completely the opposite or I had no idea. I like to know what I'm talking about. These people just blindly accept what they were taught when they were younger, what their parents told them, and so Adam and Eve is real, and they won't really listen to, the evolution thing. They'll sort of maybe in the background, in the back of the mind say, yeah, evolution happened, but they won't put two and two together, and that's horrifying because if they did, then there'd be a lot less Catholics in the world.
This is the problem that you get when religious authorities will say, you've got to question everything, but they mean question within the confines of those worldviews. Absolutely. There are certain things that they say those are your ultimate truths, and question within that. You can't really question outside of that. That's the whole point of having dogma. Yeah. There would be no dogma if everyone would come into the same conclusions on their own. And there would be less dogma if faith was not granted as a virtue. Yeah. The whole point of having doubting Thomas, what was doubting Thomas's problem? That he doubted, that he wouldn't believe it until he saw it and he was vilified. Yeah. I won't believe it until I either see it or have enough evidence to come to that conclusion. Why do all these
people believe it without seeing it or have any evidence? Because they don't read, they don't do any research.
So I feel like even though we've just touched on a few things about Catholicism, it's nowhere near enough, is it? Like I feel like we need to wrap this up to make it some form of we need to consolidate it as an episode.
Okay.
But we could essentially do this for like hours and hours. Absolutely. Because the Catholic Church is that ridiculous.
Yes.
So I'm thinking like we'll mix it up a little bit. I don't want to do Catholicism all the time, but we could do like Catholics and child abuse, although Absolutely. That won't really make for an entertaining podcast.
No, it won't.
It'll be informative, but it will be horrendous.
Yeah.
then we could have Catholics and hypocrisy, Catholics and dogma, Catholics and their changing views that the Conservatives don't seem to think have changed in 2,000 years, which is a little strange. We could do
Catholics and their knowledge would be quite nice.
Yes,
We could
There's a few
we could
polls.
pull some friends in.
Maybe,
and get them to do some.
There's a few polls that sort of show, which religions are more knowledgeable about the Bible and things. Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to leave that part there.
Okay.
But I'm just going to move along a little and just explain to you what I've been doing while you have not been around.
Wow.
Okay, so
accusatory. I like it.
So
I'm always around.
You may or may not.
Everywhere.
I'm omniscient, omnipresent. So,
or at least my cameras are. Carry on.
So there's a podcast called the You Without God podcast.
Yes.
Run by, I don't know if they go by the real names actually, so I won't. Oh, no, yeah, they do. And Andrew Lee and Chris Krasinski. They co-host a You Without God podcast. Yep. And I was the special guest of episode 5. I'm looking at the website right now. So it's youwithoutgod.com. And I'm the most recent one, episode 5, Mr. Watchtower.
Nice.
So feel free to listen to my upbringing as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
And then
Thank you for that information.
And then lastly, we're going to go to listeners' questions.
Wow, we've got listeners' questions. People listen to this. I thought this was just what we did.
Yeah, actually, I've got a bit of feedback from the last one. So let's.
From the last one that we did.
Well, you were in the last 2, weren't you? So a bit of feedback from there.
Was it good feedback, or should we not? Talk
yeah,
about
no,
it?
it's all positive.
We don't want to embarrass ourselves.
It's all positive, even about you.
Wow. Outrageous.
Okay, right. I've got the question. The question is from Religious Eyebrows at Religious Tourist.
Ouch.
Religious Tourist. What he does, in case you don't know him, feel free to go over and follow him. He follows a religion every month. So he's done spiritualism and Mormonism. He's been a Jehovah's Witness. He's Judaism. He's kind of tried to follow each branch. And apparently he's writing a book, unless when he said he was writing a book, that was just a joke. I'm not too sure, but I think he's writing a book.
That's something I'd like to read. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, there you go, RT. Yeah, you love that, don't you?
I'll purchase your book.
Yes, I'll purchase it.
Unless it's like really long and like it's like the Bible. I don't know.
If it's long and laborious, like this podcast.
Wow.
Yes. Mean. Okay, so I asked, I put a little tweet out just before, to be fair, I didn't give people enough time because I only put it out like 2 minutes before we press record. But I just said, got a question, episode 9 of the Watchtower Awakening podcast is about to be recorded. Ask and thou shall receive an answer.
Nice.
So Religious T, being the ridiculous human being that he is, he put, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could Chuck Norris?
Wow, mind-blowing.
It's not a real question, that, is it?
I don't think that's a real question, but I'm going to go with a lot.
If it's Chuck Norris, it's a full tree, caber tossed.
Oak. A giant redwood.
Giant redwood, yes. Okay. Chuck Norris, RT, religious tourist. So Chuck Norris could caber toss a great redwood.
Yeah.
Yeah? Eat that.
Yeah.
That's not even the real question. The real question was...
Oh. I prefer that one.
I asked him for a real question and he said, okay, if dogma evolved from God, why is there... Oh, what's the point? That's what he tweeted. because he's alluding to something that people that understand evolution have to keep putting up with on Twitter, which is like... If human beings evolved from monkeys, like why are there still monkeys?
I knew you were gonna say.
And like
why are there still monkeys?
And like how come you think I'm an ape? That's what happens, right? So it just becomes like a right. Well, if dogs evolved from wolves, why are there still wolves?
Yeah,
you know, it's they don't say it like it's a question.
No,
they say it like it's a statement that befuddles all atheists and people who understand evolution. If you want to check out watchtowerandawakening.com, there is a blog post on there entitled, what is it entitled? What is it? Evolution, just a theory? ? And
is it not baboon, balloon, bassoon, Catholic Church?
No.
Oh, okay. That must have been a different blog.
Okay, so he's saying, if dogma evolved from God, what's the point? Because he's trying to say, like, if dogma evolved from God, why is there God?
Yeah.
It's a great question. And
why is there God?
I didn't really have any comeback other than because Bible.
I think my comeback is, don't worry, there isn't.
Yeah, if dogma
Why
evolved
is
from
there
God,
there isn't, don't worry,
yeah,
religious
I think the real genuine answer is dogma didn't evolve from God.
'Cause God
People
doesn't exist.
created God and gradually built up their dogmas,
Yeah.
only to gradually evolve them.
Yeah. It's about control,
bringing
isn't
it
it?
back, bringing it back full circle.
Of
They
course.
brought about dogma in order to have some kind of religious order.
Yeah.
Then their dogmas gradually evolved over years and years and years,
Evolution,
just like
baby.
the Catholic Church has done for
Yes.
over 2,000 years.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's it. We just put the world to rights.
I think we did it. I'm not surprised.
No.
We were due, weren't we? Let's be honest.
I'm not a Jew.
You're not.
Okay.
Then what are we doing here?
Right, okay, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Next episode will be...
in West Philadelphia. Oh, no, you didn't want to. You didn't want to rap. Many apologies.
My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, huh? You can do sad bits.
Let's
Okay, so
wrap this up.
Next episode, which will be episode 10. It's a good.
No way,
it's
double
a good.
figures.
It's a good one to finish on. Double figures. Well, not finish on.
Please, can I be involved in episode 69?
You can.
Thank you.
Why specifically 69?
Why not? Carry on.
Why not 69? Am I right? Right. So
Always
so
69. Carry on. This isn't the forum for that.
That's for our other sexually explicit context for that.
You can find that at www.69.com.
That's Watchtower and Awakening. Watchtower and Awakening. Or Watchtower and Awakening. Oh no, that's like a post.
Watchtower and Awakening. What's happened? You need to drink less vodka.
Watchtower and
before
Awakening,
we go.
now with added discharge.
Oh no. I apologise, listeners. I started it and it's time for me to finish it. Go.
Finish what? Hey! Boom. Okay.
Squelch.
So, episode 10 is going to be the Christmas special. Okay, I've asked a few podcasters, and I'll be asking a few more, not necessarily podcasters, but, you know, people out there, to send me a little audio file, no more than about 2 minutes, that basically explains, if you are an atheist and you celebrate Christmas, why?
Yeah.
And I kind of got the idea from the book, which is entitled An Atheist's Guide to Christmas.
Okay.
So basically, why do you celebrate... You don't have to answer this, I'm just saying, why do you celebrate
No,
Christmas
okay.
if you're an atheist? And that's basically going to be the question and the title of the podcast. From what I know, there is a few people sending them in. Godless Smeghead has just tweeted, actually, just saying,
Excellent.
I'm about to record a winter solstice message for Mr. Watchtower.
Yay, fantastic.
Bible Reloaded have decided they're going to do it too.
Brilliant.
I'm hoping Adam Reeks, I will be Skyping with him, hopefully, just to ask him a few questions. A few others out there. But if you listen to this and you would like to send us an audio file in, it doesn't necessarily need to be an audio file. You can simply tweet it, and I might mention, if you can fit it into 140 characters, brilliant. If not, send it to me. But I'll explain exactly where to send it to me if you privately message me via Twitter.
Perfect.
So that's number 9 over with. The ever-changing doctrine of the Catholic faith.
Fabulous. Well done. You did well.
Thanks. So it's goodbye from Miss Bonaventure.
Yes, goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from Mr. Watchtower.
Goodbye
and
from you.
Just remember, there is no God, but if there is, may he strike us down.